Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/AskReddit by Planet Reddit. Teachers of Reddit. What are the most annoying things that students do that you can't punish them for? I am a preschool teacher. So my biggest struggle is when one of my students tells me no or just refuses to do something. Like walk down the hallway to lunch. You can't physically force a student to do something. So it becomes a game of waiting and or bribery. My mom has been an assistant in a preschool for about 10 years. One of her favorite things to do is hand out gold stars throughout the year. If one kid is doing well and others aren't, she'll say if I had a gold star, I'd give one to, and most often kids follow. Even though the gold star is completely hypothetical. However, at the end of the year, she does make gold star necklaces out of gold paper and yarn with each kid's names on it, and it's always a hit. You know who else used gold stars? Hitler. Giving the class directions and then having the kids that were goofing off ask how to do multiple things I already explained. I put dry erase speech bubble on my wall. I wrote, I answered that question less than 2 minutes ago. I have never changed it because I point to it every day. Low effort. Consistent. And smug. I like it. Tiny. Constant little lies. I had this one student this year whose first reaction to just about anything was to lie. Stop talking. I wasn't. Sit down. I am. Don't throw paper. I didn't. All things I could see clearly he had done. Or my favorite. Was doing. Like telling me he's in his seat when I'm staring at him standing. Mostly I found it kind of funny. But occasionally it was so frustrating. I tried turning it into character building. Talk to parents. etc. But it was nearly compulsive. And it was useless to try to address. Much less punish every lie. When this happens, I recommend the Queen Victoria look. Just look at them with zero emotion on your face. At first they'll combat you and try to argue. But I wasn't. Just keep looking at them. Block out their words. Mentally prepare your shopping list for groceries. They'll keep trying to make excuses as you just stare at them, not intensely. Eventually they stop and feel stupid. Works like a charm, and it doesn't require you to lose your cool or compromise your authority in the classroom by yelling or resorting to arguing with them. When they shut up, tell them to stop again. They'll do it. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Works very well. IamGood.com link. Anything based on tone of voice or subtle piss taking. It's hard to combat without sounding either utterly unreasonable or having to explain too much. And there's always the creeping doubt that maybe that's just how they speak. Edit. Taking the piss is British for mocking in a sarcastic manner. Nothing to do with peeing in class. Though that can happen. In my high school, kids were grouped together for classes. Okay. We were the nerdy kids. We had one kid who spoke really fast and some teachers couldn't follow. All the kids were used to it and could understand her just fine. Some teachers would just get a WTF look on their face. They tried to get her some speech therapy in 11th grade. Oh, you're too late. A teacher once said that I talk too fast and use too complex words. I talked like a Neanderthal for the rest of class. Walking into the class and saying, whoa, we have a test today? Mother ducker, we just reviewed yesterday and the date is in 5 different locations. My favorite. Me. Okay guys. We have a test this Friday on the material we covered in the past week. The date is on the board. 10 minutes later. As I'm teaching. Student number 1. Wait. We have a test? When is it? Me. The date is on the board. As I was saying. Student number 2. What's it on? Me. Sigh. It's on everything we learned since the last test. Anyway. Back to what I was saying. Student number 3, is it multiple choice? Are there any short answer? Me. It's the same format as every other test I've given you this year. Now. Student number 4, the topic we're doing right now. Is that on the test? Me. Yes. Friday. Happens in the corporate world too, but replace the word test with meeting. Having shitty parents. Once had a parent who complained to the school about my seating plan. I changed it because her daughter would not stop talking to her friend when I was teaching. She still didn't care. The students are being punished enough by having shitty parents : use their phones in class. Technically I can punish, but it is not worth it. We are not allowed to take up phones, but can send a student to the office if they refuse to put it away. One of my teachers had a very sharp eye for this and could easily detect when students were texting, and she silently came up to them and confiscated their phones. In college, a couple of my professors had this policy. If your phone went off, you had to bring the class cookies at the next meeting. Most teachers can tell. Also, high schoolers aren't as sneaky as they think. I always know. I just pick my battles. In Japan, I'm an assistant language teacher, and in my classes the thing they all ducking do that I can't do shit about is nothing. They do nothing. They sit and stare at me like a pack of stunned mullets, and there is nothing I can do about it. The really gutsy ones just straight up go to sleep. Ideally, their teacher, who is also in the room, should do something, but they don't. In Australia, I was a primary school teacher and I hated the kids who had notes from home that requested the kids get some kind of special treatment. I get to take my shoes off in class cause I have a note from home. As a casual I really don't have a choice but to do what the note says lest a parent complains and I never get work at that school again, but it still ticked me off. Pack of stunned mullets is the best thing I've heard all day. Common Aussie slang. English teacher in a foreign land here. My kids, while in general a good group, will sometimes take advantage of my not knowing their language and act like little a-holes. They'll swear freely because they know I don't understand. And when I do learn a new swear word and tell them to knock it off, they'll just switch to a new one or use bigger words that they know I won't get. Edit. Oh wow. Like so many of my answers on r/AskReddit, I just assumed this would get buried. Thanks for making it my top rated comment ever. I've noticed a few of the same questions getting asked over and over again. So I'll clarify. Where do you teach? I teach in Korea. The less dictatorial one. How can you teach English when you don't speak the language? The government here does not require that you know any Korean. They only want teachers who speak English as their native language. I can read the Hangul alphabet just fine and I study the language in my off time. But I'm still a beginner. Students here typically study English for about 10 years, starting in elementary school. I teach high school students, so they know enough to understand the basics. My role is mostly to help them practice conversation and to cultivate their interest in Western culture. How did you get that job? I applied through a government-run English program called EPIC. Learn the language, but don't ever let the kids know that. Then the last day you speak fluently in their language and see what they do. That's a huge time investment. I had a student once that asked me if he could fart in the hallway. I stared at him and said yes. So he went out there and let it rip. Everyone still heard him. Asking frivolous questions persistently when I am trying to finish teaching the content that I had planned to. Why aren't there smells in dreams? That's actually a really good question. Okay, maybe when you are learning to add fractions isn't the best time, but you want to reward honest curiosity. That's how you learn stuff. I teach high school and I work with teenagers. You can't blame teenagers for acting like teenagers. My job is to work with them. It would be like a doctor complaining about having to deal with sick people. Parents, on the other hand, I usually expect to act like goddamn adults. Or at least as mature as their kids. That's not always the case. Deny an act that I have already caught them in. Not even anything major. Just small stuff like texting or talking. They will deny it until they die. I take this great opportunity to teach about character and what integrity means. It doesn't always sink through, but some of my students have never heard those words before, so any chance I get I take. Ah yes. I'm not the most attentive student and would oftentimes get called out in class. Sneakiness, will you answer the question? In order to keep me focused. I realized pretty quick it's much easier to say, I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention. Would you repeat it? Then to field a guess or feign like I had been attentive. But miss, I wasn't doing anything. Yes you were, I literally watched you with my eyeballs. Okay, I work as a janitor at a college, and let me tell you what, some teachers, not everyone by far, do that really bother me. I actually love my job, but these things affect the students as much as it does me for the most part. They rearrange the furniture for group activities and never once ask the kids to put things back. Once or twice okay, but this not only inconveniences me, it ducks it for other teachers who have class in the same room 10 minutes later. Damn teacher right before me always has powwow hour, and then I'm supposed to go over math with everyone in a feeling circle. We played this trick called plate tectonics. We would all move our desks forward throughout the period, but imperceptibly slowly, like an inch a minute, at most. Then when the teacher finally noticed, but pretended not to, cause we were always doing shit like this, we'd blame it on plate tectonics. I had an ongoing prank war with my students, well, the two classes that could handle it, my youngest class and oldest class actually. It was fantastic. Though some of the other teachers that ended up as collateral damage might not have agreed. I'd probably give them a little extra credit for something that slick. Tell us more. I once asked my teacher 27 questions in one class period. I was being a shithead, but it was my revenge for her calling my parents previously for saying I wasn't paying attention. You did it right. I hate when kids do this. Or that smart kid raises their hand to answer every question. We know. You know it. Let someone else have a try. We had a teacher that in elementary school would only let kids answer if they fell in that day's requirement. Things like having an even numbered desk or wearing a blue shirt and stuff like that. I mean, it was easy questions like name something a firefighter might do for his job. But I think it worked well. I remember as the always answering kid it was frustrating. But I think it helped overall class participation. Even if you didn't know the answers, you would still try because you were special that day for passing the requirement. Edit. For everyone saying that if they weren't in the requirements they would slack off, it was a 3rd or 4th grade GT class. I had the same teacher for a couple years, so I DK exactly when. We weren't the kind of kids not to participate. Plus it wasn't just a lecture, so it was still interesting regardless if you were in the requirements or not. Treat other kids like shit. I taught middle school special education and I couldn't exactly give detention for refusing to let someone sit with them at lunch. But goddammit you guys, is it really going to kill you to be nice to someone and let them sit at the empty seat at your table for half an hour? Spread rumors. Seriously. Mean girls are the ducking worst human beings in a school setting. I'm not a teacher, but one of my good friends would always staple his assignments in the very bottom right corner, so that his English teacher would autopilot and staple the top left corner, thus preventing him from reading it. Veteran teacher here. 30 plus years. I learned a good while ago that punishment is counterproductive. It efficiently creates resentment and pretty much never affects long-term behavior, except to inspire students to not get caught. So, instead, I speak to students one-on-one, careful not to embarrass or put them on the spot, usually with some sort of golden rule query like what if everyone did that? Or, if it's a bigger deal, I might say I'm pretty disappointed. And that's about as tough as I have to get. I hate being told what to do. Ducking hate it. I'm pretty sure a fair number of my students feel the same way. So I don't do that. Obedience is an efficient way to measure obedience, but it isn't very helpful in measuring learning. What I do works because my students, like me, I can't think of a more sophisticated way to write it. Adding an unnecessary comma. Edit. Ow. My inbox hurts. Edit 2. GR8 Goldmate IR8. 8/8. Edit 3. Fixed my edits. Gwrrr. Expect an A just for showing up and going through the motions. As for me, I show up once a week and take the tests about proving to you this is a triangle. One time my maths teacher gave me a detention for something pedantic. So I spent the rest of the class reflecting sunlight off my watch into his eyes. Only for a few seconds each time. Just enough to make him notice. Before I moved my arm slightly and feigned ignorance. Yes. Shallow and pedantic. Quite. holding such fundamentalist religious beliefs that they challenge you / will not accept any lessons on science, psychology, or history that do not align with those beliefs. Watching them put up a mental wall, and watching otherwise kind and generous students shut down and turn into sullen and hateful creatures with every word you say, can be so frustrating. Had this girl in my mythology course in college. Mythology. They shouldn't be called gods. Why do you refer to this as if it actually happened? Same in my mythology class. I didn't know we were going to be talking about demons. I can't be here. Miss. Can I be excused? My prof just said this is college. You can leave anytime you'd like. You can drop the class if you don't like the content. Instead he would walk out every class and then get pissed off when he didn't pass the tests. The kid was batshit. He brought up Ouija boards a lot. Not paying attention in class. Getting straight A's and bragging about it all the time. We get it. You're smart. Now please be quiet and let me teach something to the kids who are not as smart. They're probably talking like that because their grades are all they have. Took until my junior year of high school, when a normal girl entered one of my AP classes, for me to realize, what the hell do normal people base their self-worth on? All I ever was an A, or worthless B, until I got the duck away from my parents. Point is, they might not just be an a-hole. It might not be the only thing they have, but it's usually the big one. An exceptionally smart child is told they are smart quite often by basically everyone around them. Their parents and grandparents brag about it to other adults. They get the same praise over and over and over and over and it goes to their head. It's hard to understand how another kid can sit through a lesson and not just passively absorb the information and ace the test like you do. And when they can't, you feel superior to them. I teach middle school. Students asking ridiculous what if questions. I actually banned what if questions from my classroom. For example, we were discussing storms and weather and a student asks what if I was wearing 14 layers of winter coats but I was wearing a Viking hat. Would I still be struck by lightning? Edit. Whoa, I didn't realize this post got popular. Most of your replies made me laugh. In response to all the "you're a bad teacher" remarks. I understand that the students are trying to wonder and learn about things, however there's a point where it turns from wonder into just trying to waste time or taking away from the actual learning in the classroom. You can usually tell when the student asking the question starts laughing. At 12 years old it's normally difficult for a student to latch onto a concrete simple idea when all they can remember is how little Joey asked what if an earthquake happened and we got sucked in and then earthworms ate us. I really do try and answer all of the actual questions students have. What if someone asks one of those questions, but they do it from just outside the door of the classroom and are not actually one of your students? Then you can slam the door in their face. Underperform. Nothing more annoying than having to spend resources on someone who is clearly capable of reaching the required levels to pass but flunked it because they couldn't be asked to spend the 30 minutes it would require for them to do so. It takes away time from the students that genuinely needs time and help. I hate repeating myself. It seems so simple and small but it gets annoying. Frequently asking to use the restroom at the start of class. I get it. Sometimes it sneaks up on me too. But I notice when you need to go more frequently than most. You just had 6 minutes of passing period. You're responsible for what you miss. What am I gonna do? Say no? Getting a ton of replies about this one. So let me address them. If it wasn't clear, I don't turn people down. And I know you only have a few minutes. You're not the first students to have a passing period. I'm only in my mid-20s. I remember what it was like. Lie to their parents. Especially about my class. Most recently, I got a flaming email sent to me with my appraiser CC'd about how this student came in after school twice a week to work with me but still failed the quizzes and subsequent test. Actually, your daughter came in twice the entire month, and once. It was to ask a single question. I seem to be generally well liked, so not many students go out of their way to annoy me. Some of the usual stuff would be too boring to post. I will say that I work in a higher income area with very little diversity. As a whole it feels like the students are a bit better behaved than the other schools where I've had experience. I say feels because I think they're actually just better at smiling for the camera. We definitely do have our problems that seem to be occurring behind the scenes where teachers can't see them. Apparently we've had a number of kids complain to the administration and counselors about racism and or homophobia, which took me completely by surprise. Only heard this in passing from my dep chair at the end of the year. But next year we're supposed to get briefed at the start of next year on what to be looking for. My campus had 4 minutes of passing period. And it was a pretty big campus too. Going to the restroom. Going to your locker. Getting to class on time. Chose to. Admittedly it wasn't always black and white that I needed to go to my locker / restroom in between classes. But for 6 minutes isn't much. There's plenty of other factors that go into this. Everyone teaches differently. Each student moves at a different pace. I hate being forced to grade reports following a rubric. I'd rather grade holistically. It bothers me because one student could write a beautifully crafted, concisely written report that forgets to answer one question and they'll get a lower grade than a student who writes a poorly worded piece of shit that basically lists the required material over the course of several unnecessarily wordy pages. It's unfair to the student who can communicate better, which is a very important skill in the scientific community. I'm a TA. Not a teacher though. Sharpening their pencil multiple times during class. First of all, it doesn't need to be razor sharp for each note. Secondly, I know you're breaking the tip just because you're bored and want to walk by your friend. Finally, if you don't firmly grasp the pencil and it spins while you sharpen, you're going to end up with that shitty result of a wood point on one half your pencil. Don't tell me the pencil sharpener is broken. You just don't know how to sharpen a pencil. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.